Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is XP Lovecat, and today I'm going to be doing a scenario review for the Call of Cthulhu RPG. This scenario is called Missed Dues, and it is a part of the scenario pack for the Keeper screen. Now there are two scenarios that come with it. This one is just for the first one, Missed Dues. For this scenario, your players are going to be playing criminals, which is something really cool and fun and different from the usual investigator type Call of Cthulhu scenario. It is a one-shot, so it can be completed in one session and usually takes about a few hours. This scenario is about a crime boss who needs a little favor from you. Now, Sticky Jack is someone that does crimes around town and usually gives a cut back to this crime boss, O'Leary. Well, word around town is he had 3 hits in one night, and the crime boss hasn't seen any of his cut. Obviously, this is a problem, so you get called into his office and is asked to investigate the situation. Moving forward, there will be spoilers to this scenario, so in theory, it should only be people who have played it before or for keepers who are wanting to run the scenario. So you get called into the crime boss's office, Mr. Hammer O'Leary. Now this NPC, I had a ton of fun playing. You can play him a couple different ways. Obviously, you can go the more serious route and be intimidating and use that objective as your demeanor. However, I preferred to play him as a more cheesy person. I actually got out one of my hammers and tried to use that as an intimidation technique, but very poorly, and kind of made a little bit of a joke of this character. In fact, he has a security guard named Nails, and I noted, "Do you know how long it took me to find this security guard named Nails?" My players seemed to really enjoy it, and it kind of got us loosened up and ready to go for the scenario. Your players are going to be in charge of researching this area and what happened to Jack. Now, in the scenario, they do provide a map of Arkham to explore, but as you can see, it's really big, a little unruly, and the map part of it is pretty small. So there are street names and the river is there, but nothing is really marked in terms of what landmarks they are. And I overall didn't really like this and didn't end up using it. Now you could create a map of your own that has the landmarks listed and something that's a little bit easier to read, but for my players, I thought this was going to be more distracting than helpful or fun. Now, as your characters are going to explore the area, remember that they are criminals. So if they try to go into a newspaper office, into the police station, something that normal investigators would go to for this scenario, there might be some problems, and you're going to want to play that up and have some fun with it. Now, one of the easily accessible places for your criminals to hang out in are the local speakeasies, which they can find plenty of information from there and play out that back and forth talking. Eventually, you'll find out that Sticky Jack stole a dagger and some papers from a professor at Miskatonic University. So naturally, your players are going to go to the university to find some information. My players specifically did find the professor, and I had a little bit of fun with a chase scene where he ended up going back to his home and was not going to let the characters see the work that he was doing research on, and they had to work a little bit for it. Another location they might head to is the church, as they find out that the head of the church, Jacob Smith, is actually the person who sent Sticky Jack on the errands to steal these things. Now, this was a ton of fun as well. You can play it up in multiple different ways, but my players did not want to have anything to do with the sermons that were going on, which is what traditionally you would have in this scenario. So instead, my players went early in the morning. I had people setting up for the next sermon, and Jacob Smith was upstairs preparing. Now, my players got very angry and wanted to go and see him, but his followers did not let him go up. So violence ensued a bit, and it got a little messy. But past that, they ended up going up to see the priest, and he was very willing to die at that point. He was just in the moment preparing. He had already succumbed to some craziness at that point, and they had fun playing out that. They will stumble upon the address of Sticky Jack either through his best friend, his Greasy Spoon, or through the desk drawer of the church area. Once they've found that, the logical next step is to head to the apartment where things get crazy. They go inside and are greeted by the landlord, who is very sweet at first and offers them tea. When she comes back with the tea, she instead has a knife and wants to be very violent in that situation. Again, some combat ensues and it gets a little not good. My players then wanted to investigate the apartment, which in the scenario is described as being very random and non-logical. So there's staircases that go into infinity and various rooms with men that are hanged and horrid sights. So I played this up for a bit, but I did start to see my players get a little frustrated with the randomness. So I dialed it back and made sure that they had a specific hallway with a couple of rooms and Sticky Jack at the end of the hallway once they were tired of the craziness that was going on. Now at this point, the scenario does say that behind one of the doors is Azathoth, and he will most definitely cause your players to go insane if they open the door. But because players don't always catch hints, they did open the door, and I chose to have a servitor behind that door instead of Azathoth, just so they had a chance at fighting it and could maybe play their characters through to the end. They find out that one of the ways they can end this madness is by killing Jack, and so they come up with a way to do that and thus ends the scenario. Overall, I think my players had a ton of fun playing it. It was a bit limited because it's a shorter scenario, so there were specific places that they needed to go to find some information, but this is pretty standard in a scenario like this. And one change that I think would be really cool to the scenario would be to bring a little bit more structure to the apartment and maybe even make it a puzzle. So, although I understand the point of the randomness and the craziness, I thought that my players didn't really enjoy that part the most. And it would have been cool for them to have something to tinker on and work through as a puzzle-like thing. But overall, we had fun with the scenario, and I think it is one that you guys should check out. I'm going to be giving it 3 cats and 1 kitten out of 5 cats of a rating, which is pretty good, and I hope that you enjoyed this review of Mrs. Dews. Let me know down in the comments if there's any weird things that you changed about the scenario, or if you enjoyed playing it with your group. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you enjoyed this video, and see you next time. Bye.